My father-in-law slapped me at dinner. My son deserves better than a secretary. My husband said nothing. I stood up, grabbed my coat, and left. 3 hours later, my husband called 23 times. His company had just been bought by me. The slap echoed through Marcello's like a gunshot. 50 people, maybe more. Every head in that overpriced Italian restaurant turned toward our table in perfect synchronization, like they'd rehearsed it. Forks suspended mid-twirl in pasta, wine glasses frozen halfway to lips. Even the waiter stopped pouring water. My cheek burned, not from the pain, though Richard's hand was heavy, his college ring leaving what I knew would be a perfect circular welt just below my cheekbone. From the humiliation, from the fact that my husband was sitting 3 feet away and hadn't moved. David worked 16-hour days building his business. Richard spat, his face the color of the Chianti he'd been nursing since we arrived, sacrificing everything for his company. And you answer phones. The last 2 words landed like another slap. My father-in-law's eyes were bright with wine and something uglier. Contempt he'd been storing up for the 2 years I'd been married to his son. Contempt he'd finally found the courage to unleash in public, with an audience, with witnesses who would tell the story of how Richard Hartwell finally put that gold-digging secretary in her place. I looked at my husband. David was studying his osso buco like it contained the secrets of the universe. His jaw was tight, his knuckles white around his fork. "David," I said quietly, calmly, even though my hands were shaking under the table. "Say something." He wouldn't meet my eyes. "Dad's had a lot to drink, so that makes it okay?" My voice came out steadier than I felt. "He hit me, in front of all these people, and you're making excuses?" Richard leaned forward, invading my space with his bulk and his rage. "You trapped him with that pregnancy scare 3 years ago. We all know it. You saw a meal ticket, and you grabbed it with both hands. My mother-in-law, Patricia, who'd never once invited me to her book club or her charity lunches, who corrected my grammar at every family gathering, nodded sharply. She's after the family money. It's obvious. Look at her. She came from nothing." The table next to us had gone completely silent. A woman in a designer dress was openly staring, her phone angled like she might be recording. The couple to our left had abandoned all pretense of eating. I stood slowly, carefully, like I was made of glass, and one wrong move would shatter me into 1,000 pieces. Every eye in Marcello's was on us now. The kitchen staff had emerged to watch. Even the sommelier stood frozen near the wine display, his corkscrew dangling uselessly. Silverware had stopped clinking. Conversations had died. The only sound was the quiet Italian music piped through the speakers, some romantic mandolin piece that now felt grotesquely inappropriate. "David," I said one last time, one final chance. "David, look at me." He finally raised his eyes. They were pleading, desperate. "Can we just finish dinner, please? We can talk about this at home." Something inside me went very quiet, very still. My hands stopped shaking. I grabbed my coat from the back of my chair, the black cashmere one David had bought me for our anniversary last month, back when he'd still occasionally pretended to care about things that mattered to me, and I walked out of Marcello's with 50 people watching. I didn't run, didn't cry, didn't look back. I walked through that restaurant like I owned it, through the door the maitre d' held open with wide eyes, onto the Chicago street where November wind hit my face and cooled the burning in my cheek. My car was 4 blocks away in a parking garage. I made it 3 blocks before my phone started ringing. I ignored the first call and the second. By call number 5, I'd reached my apartment, not the penthouse condo David and I shared in River North, but the studio in West Loop I'd been renting for the last 6 months. The one he didn't know about. The one I'd furnished with a desk, a laptop, a bed, and nothing else. By call 15, I'd poured myself a glass of the Malbec I kept for occasions that required steady hands and clearer thinking. By call 20, the voicemails had shifted from angry to desperate. "Babe, please pick up. Something's happened. I need you. Anna, I'm serious. This is important. I need my wife right now. They're taking everything. Please answer. I need you." I listened to each one while sitting at my desk, watching the city lights glitter through my window. By call 23, he was crying. Actually crying. I could hear it in his voice. The breakdown of the man who'd sat silent while his father's hand connected with my face. "The company. Someone bought us out. Some investment firm. They're shutting us down. Everyone's fired. Anna, I don't understand how this happened so fast. We were fine yesterday. We were fine. Now it's gone. Everything's gone. Please call me back." I waited until call 23 ended, finished my wine, poured another glass. Then I called him back. "What's wrong, David?" "Anna, thank God, where are you? I've been trying to reach you for hours." 3 hours and 17 minutes, I said. "What's wrong?" "The company. Hartwell Industries. Someone bought us out. Some investment firm I've never heard of. They're shutting us down immediately. Everyone's terminated. All 43 employees gone. The office is locked. They changed all the codes. I can't even get in to retrieve my files." "That's terrible," I said flatly, examining my nails. I'd gotten a manicure that morning. Classic red, professional. "I'm losing everything, Anna. The house, the cars, the boat. It's all leveraged against the business. The banks are calling. I have lawyers leaving messages. I don't understand how this happened so fast. 24 hours ago I was fine. Now I'm—" His voice cracked. "Now I'm ruined. That's unfortunate. Can you come home, please? I need you. I need my wife. Did you need me 3 hours ago?" Silence on the line. I let it stretch. When your father hit me, I continued quietly, in front of 50 people with his ring, hard enough to leave a mark. Did you need me then? He was drunk, Anna. You know how he gets. You were sober. More silence. Longer this time. I could hear him breathing. Short, shallow breaths. The kind that came before panic attacks. Who bought the company? I asked conversationally. Like we were discussing the weather. You said an investment firm? Some company called Meridian Holdings. I've never heard of them. They won't even meet with me. Just sent lawyers with papers. Cold, corporate lawyers who wouldn't answer questions. Said the deal was done, filed, legal, binding. Meridian Holdings, I repeated slowly, tasting each syllable. That's interesting. Why? Do you know them? Because, David, I said, and I could hear the smile in my own voice. I am Meridian Holdings. The line went dead quiet, not even breathing now. What? Finally, barely a whisper. I didn't answer phones, David. I was executive assistant to Marcus Carrington, the CEO of Carrington Capital, the largest private equity firm in Illinois, the firm that manages $8 billion in assets. I worked there for 8 years before we got married. I heard him try to speak, fail, try again. I coordinated acquisitions. I managed due diligence. I sat in on board meetings with Fortune 500 companies. I made $240,000 a year before bonuses. You never said, I told you on our third date, I interrupted. Do you remember? We were at that Thai place in Wicker Park. You asked what I did. I told you I was Marcus Carrington's executive assistant at Carrington Capital. You said, oh, so you're a secretary, and ordered another beer. Silence. I left that job when we got married because your family said it wasn't appropriate for a wife to work. Remember? Your mother cried about grandchildren, about how a woman's place was supporting her husband, making a home, about how the Hartwell women didn't need careers because the Hartwell men provided. Anna, you never asked what I gave up. You just assumed secretary meant coffee and filing, assumed I answered phones and scheduled meetings and nothing more. You never once asked about my education, my MBA from Northwestern, my thesis on leveraged buyouts in mid-market manufacturing. Oh God, his voice broke. I've spent 2 years watching you struggle, watching Hartwell Industries bleed money because you wouldn't listen to anyone. I sent you 3 detailed restructuring plans, emailed them to you directly, 27 pages each, financial models, operational recommendations, market analysis. I thought, he was hyperventilating now, I thought those were from Amy, your assistant, Amy Martinez. Yes, because I signed them AM. I laughed, and it sounded harsh even to my own ears. My initials, but you just assumed they were from her. Never read past the first page. Just forwarded them to your father with a note that said, Amy's trying to help again, sweet kid, but in over her head. The sound he made was inhuman. I found those emails, I continued, in your trash folder. All 3 plans, unread, deleted. I didn't know. No, you didn't, because you never asked. Never wondered why a secretary might have opinions on debt restructuring or supply chain optimization. I stood up, paced to the window. Chicago spread out below me like a circuit board, all lights and geometry. I reached out to my old firm 6 months ago, September 14th. Marcus took me to lunch at the Capitol Grill. Do you know what he said when I told him I wanted to come back? David said nothing. He said, thank God, I've been drowning without you. He gave me a consulting contract that afternoon. I've been working every day since, from this apartment, the one you don't know about, the one I've been paying for in cash. You've been working? Every day you were at the office, so was I. I closed 2 deals for Carrington Capital in 3 months, made them $47 million. They gave me my own fund to manage, Meridian Holdings, $20 million in seed capital, free rein to invest in mid-market acquisitions. Why didn't you tell me? The question was so absurd I almost laughed. I did tell you, 4 months ago, remember? We were having dinner. You were complaining about cash flow problems. I said I'd been consulting, that I'd made some connections, that I might have ideas that could help. You know what you said? He didn't answer. You said my ideas were cute, that I should focus on decorating the nursery. You patted my hand like I was a child and went back to your steak. We don't have a nursery. Exactly, I heard shouting in the background. Richard's voice booming and furious. Patricia shrieking something about lawyers. Your company was my first acquisition target, I said calmly. I've been buying up your debt for 3 months. Every time Hartwell Industries missed a payment, and David, you missed a lot of payments, the banks packaged that debt and sold it. Guess who was buying? You can't do this. I already did. The papers were filed at 5:07 p.m. today, right around the time your father's hand connected with my face. The timing is almost poetic, don't you think? Anna, please. He was fully crying now, sobbing like a child. We can fix this. I'll talk to him. Dad will apologize. Mom will apologize. We'll make this right. I don't want his apology. Then what do you want? The question hung in the air. I thought about it. Really thought about it. I wanted my husband to stand up for me, I said quietly. When his father hit me in front of 50 people, when his mother called me a gold digger, when they spent 2 years treating me like I was something they'd scraped off their shoe, I wanted you to say, that's my wife. Don't you ever speak to her like that again? But you didn't. You sat there, and you asked me to finish dinner. I was trying to keep the peace. You chose them over me. You always did. Every time. David's mother grabbed the phone. I could hear the scramble, Patricia's manicured claws snatching it away. You vindictive little bitch. Her voice was shrill enough enough to make me wince. We welcomed you into our family. We treated you like one of our own. No, I said calmly, evenly. You tolerated me. You corrected my grammar at every holiday. You excluded me from your charity events. You told David I wasn't Hartwell material when you thought I couldn't hear. There's a difference between welcoming someone and simply allowing them to exist in your proximity. Richard's voice boomed in the background, close enough that Patricia must have put me on speaker. We'll sue you for everything. Fraud, illegal acquisition. We'll bury you in court costs until you're begging. With what money? I asked. I own your son's company, all of his assets, and the lien on your house. The line went silent, completely silent. You remortgaged your house 18 months ago to fund David's expansion into automotive parts. Do you remember? You took out a $1.2 million home equity line of credit, used it to buy that warehouse in Gary, Indiana, the one that's been sitting empty because David couldn't secure the contracts he promised you he had. I could hear them breathing, all three of them, realizing what I'd done, understanding the full scope of their situation. That debt? I continued. I bought it from First National Bank, October 23rd. They were happy to sell. You're 6 months behind on payments. The bank was about to foreclose anyway. I just made them a better offer. Richard couldn't finish the sentence. The papers are being delivered to your house right now. A courier service. Very professional. You have 30 days to vacate. I'm selling the house to cover David's corporate debts. There's a developer who's been eyeing your property for months. He's offering $2.1 million. Should almost cover what you owe. You can't do this. Richard's voice was strangled. I can. I did. You see, Richard, while you were busy slapping me in front of 50 people and telling me I just answer phones, explaining to everyone in that restaurant that your son deserves better than a secretary, I was busy destroying everything you built. I heard something crash in the background. Glass shattering. David's company is mine. Your house is mine. The boat, that ridiculous 40-foot yacht you bought last summer to impress your golf buddies, is financed through Hartwell Industries credit line. Also mine. I'm having it repossessed tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. The marina already confirmed. Please, David was back on the phone. Please, Anna, this is insane. You're destroying my entire family. No, I said softly. I'm collecting on debts, legal debts, documented debts. I'm doing exactly what any investment firm would do when they acquire a failing company. The fact that it's personal is just a bonus. What about us? What about our marriage? What marriage, David? The one where you defended your father after he hit me? The one where you called my career plans cute? The one where you forgot my birthday 3 years in a row, but never missed a single one of your mother's charity events? I love you. No, I said. You love the idea of a wife who doesn't challenge you, who makes you look good at parties, who validates your decisions and asks how your day was. But you never loved me. You never even knew me. I hung up. For a long moment, I just sat there in my apartment, the one David didn't know existed, the one I'd been renting for 6 months while I planned this, the one with the view of the Chicago skyline and absolutely nothing else because I didn't need anything else, and felt the weight of what I'd done settle over me like snow. Then I opened my laptop. I had work to do. The email started at 11:47 p.m. From David. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please give me another chance. From Richard. You'll regret this. I know people. Powerful people. From Patricia. This is what happens when common girls marry above their station. You were never good enough for this family. I deleted them all without responding. At 1:23 a.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. The message was from Marcus Carrington. Anna, I just got a very entertaining call from Richard Hartwell threatening to sue me, you, and apparently the entire concept of private equity. I told him to get in line. Congratulations on your first acquisition. Drinks are on me when this settles. Also, the Hartwell Industries assets are worth more than you paid. Good eye. You always did have better instincts than half my senior team. I smiled at my phone in the darkness. The next morning, I got a call from Detective Jennifer Morrison with the Chicago Police Department's Financial Crimes Unit. Ms. Chen, this is Detective Morrison. I'm calling regarding a complaint filed by Richard Hartwell. He's alleging fraud and theft related to a recent business acquisition. Do you have time to come in for a conversation? Am I under investigation? At this point, we're just gathering information. Mr. Hartwell is claiming you manipulated his son into signing over assets under false pretenses. I'll have my lawyer contact you within the hour, I said. But for the record, everything I did was legal, documented, filed with the appropriate regulatory bodies. I have copies of every transaction, every contract, every wire transfer. Would you like me to send them over? That would be helpful, actually. I'll have my assistant forward everything this afternoon. 2,700 pages of documentation, every single debt I purchased, every legal transfer, every properly executed contract. If Richard Hartwell wants to claim fraud, he's welcome to try. But he'll lose. Detective Morrison sighed. Between you and me, I've already reviewed the preliminary paperwork. Everything looks clean. But we have to investigate when someone files a formal complaint. It's procedure. I understand. My lawyer will be in touch. I hung up and immediately called Margaret Chen, no relation, though we joked about it, the corporate attorney I'd retained 3 months ago specifically for this situation. They called, I said without preamble. I'll handle it, Margaret replied. She sounded amused. I've been preparing for this since October. Let them investigate. They'll find exactly what we want them to find. A legitimate acquisition of distressed assets by a properly registered investment firm. The fact that you're married to the former owner is irrelevant to the legality. Richard's claiming manipulation. Richard's claiming a lot of things. None of them will hold up. The paper trail is immaculate. You know why? Because you did everything by the book. You paid fair market value for distressed debt. You filed all required disclosures. You didn't use any insider information. You couldn't have, because David never told you anything useful about his company anyway. I laughed. It felt good. Give me 48 hours, Margaret continued. I'll have the police wrapped up and a statement prepared for the press if needed. This is going to be ugly for a few days, but you'll come out clean. The story broke 36 hours later. Local woman acquires husband's failing company. Hours after public altercation. The Tribune ran it first, then the business section of the Sun-Times picked it up. By lunchtime, it was trending on local Twitter. The restaurant had cameras. Of course they did. Footage of Richard slapping me, grainy but unmistakable, was on 3 news sites by 3 p.m. My face turned toward David. His face turned away. Patricia nodding in agreement as Richard called me a gold digger. The comments section was brutal. Good for her. Hope she takes everything. This is what happens when rich families underestimate people. She just answered phones? El Mao, she answered his entire business. The husband sitting there doing nothing. Divorce him, sis. My phone rang constantly. Reporters wanting interviews. Morning shows wanting me to tell my side. David calling and calling and calling until I blocked his number. I ignored all of it. I had work to do. 2 weeks later, I sat in Margaret's downtown office reviewing the final settlement documents. David's willing to agree to everything, she said, sliding the papers across her desk. Full dissolution of Hartwell Industries. Transfer of all assets to Meridian Holdings. He gets nothing. Richard and Patricia are being evicted next week. The house sale closes on Friday. David's filing for bankruptcy. And the divorce? He'll sign whatever you want. He's desperate. He thinks if he cooperates, you might give him something. A settlement. A recommendation. A reason for future investors to trust him. Will I? Margaret smiled. It was sharp enough to cut glass. That's up to you. I thought about it. About David sitting silent while his father hit me. About 2 years of being treated like I was stupid, decorative, useful only for the way I looked at parties. About every restructuring plan I'd written that had been deleted, unread. About the woman who'd walked out of Marcello's with a red handprint on her face. No, I said. He gets nothing. Let him start over. Let him see what it's like to build something from scratch without daddy's money. Poetic, Margaret said. I'll let him know. 3 months later, I sold Hartwell Industries assets for $4.2 million. The warehouse in Gary went to a logistics company. The machinery went to a manufacturing firm in Wisconsin. The patents, the few that were actually worth something, went to a tech startup in Austin. After paying off all debts, I cleared $890,000 in profit, my first successful acquisition. Marcus Carrington took me to dinner at Alinea to celebrate. You know what I like about this? He said over the molecular gastronomy course that looked like edible architecture. It's not even about the money. You could have paid off David's debts, saved the company, played the dutiful wife. Instead, you destroyed him professionally, personally, and financially. And you did it legally, immaculately, with documentation that would make the SEC weep with joy. He didn't defend me, I said simply. When it mattered most, he chose his father over his wife. That was the moment I knew. Knew what? That I was worth more than being tolerated. That I didn't need to make myself smaller so they could feel bigger. That the only person who was ever going to fight for me was me. Marcus raised his glass. To fighting for yourself. I clinked mine against his. And winning. I signed the divorce papers 6 weeks later in a conference room at Margaret's office. David showed up looking hollow. He'd lost weight. His suit didn't fit right anymore. Probably because he'd had to sell most of his wardrobe to pay rent on whatever apartment he'd found. He tried to talk to me before we started. Anna, I said quietly. Just sign the papers. I never meant for things to end like this. I loved you. You loved the version of me that didn't challenge you. That's not the same thing as loving me. He signed the papers. So did I. When it was done, when Margaret had witnessed and notarized and filed everything electronically, David stood up to leave. At the door, he turned back. Was it worth it? He asked. Destroying everything we had? Destroying my family? I looked at him. Really looked at him. At the man who'd sat silent while his father hit me. At the man who'd deleted my ideas without reading them. At the man who'd called my career plans cute and my ambitions unnecessary. I didn't destroy your family, I said. I just stopped letting them destroy me. There's a difference. He left. I stayed in that conference room for another 10 minutes, watching Chicago traffic move like blood through the city's veins, and I realized something important. The woman who'd walked out of Marcello's 3 months ago with a red handprint on her face wasn't the same woman sitting in this chair. That woman had been smaller, quieter, willing to shrink herself to fit into spaces that were never meant to hold her. This woman owned things. This woman built things. This woman had just completed her first successful acquisition and had Marcus Carrington's personal line on speed dial for the next one. 6 months later, I closed my third acquisition, a textile manufacturer in Michigan, struggling, over-leveraged, poorly managed. I bought it for $1 $1.8 million, restructured the operations, the same recommendations I'd written for David years ago, the ones he'd deleted, the ones that actually worked, sold it 9 months later for $4.6 million. Meridian Holdings was growing. I hired 3 employees, rented office space in the West Loop, got interviewed by Crane's Chicago Business for a profile on emerging fund managers. The reporter asked about David, about the restaurant, about the viral video that still circulated on financial Twitter as a cautionary tale about underestimating people. "Do you regret how it ended?" she asked. I thought about that question for a long time. "No," I finally said. "I regret how long I let it continue. I regret making myself smaller. I regret believing that love meant accepting disrespect. But the ending? The ending was perfect. Sometimes you have to destroy what's broken before you can build something better." The article ran with the headline, "The secretary who built an empire after her husband's family slapped her down." Literally, it went viral again. My fund got 50 new investment inquiries. Marcus called to congratulate me. And late that night, sitting in my apartment with its view of Chicago's glittering lights, I poured myself a glass of the same Malbec I'd drunk the night I destroyed David's company, raised it to my reflection in the window. "To answering phones," I said softly, and I drank to the woman I'd become, the one who'd taken a slap intended to put her in her place and turned it into the foundation of something extraordinary, the one who'd proven that sometimes the best revenge isn't violence or cruelty, it's competence, it's success, it's building something so undeniable that everyone who underestimated you has no choice but to watch you rise. Richard Hartwell slapped me in front of 50 people, told me I just answered phones, so I answered his entire life with a single word: foreclosure.